me tell you about a friend. It's Craig LeBlanc where the good times never end. Talking Parks and Rec, it's a show you gotta know. Welcome one and all to the Daily Parks and Rec Show. It's the Daily Parks and Rec Show.
From the outside looking in, you think of park maintenance as mowing, blowing, and going. We blow off the sidewalks, and then hey, we're on to the next spot. If you have a park that has a playground, okay, you got to look at the safety of that playground from an inspection standpoint. If you have restrooms, you got to think about the cleanliness of it. You got to think about the plumbing. You got to think of the structure itself and all the fine details to keep that structure being able to be utilized by the public.
Welcome back to the Daily Parks and Rec Show, where vibrant communities come alive thanks to the unsung heroes behind the scenes. Today, we're excited to introduce Daniel Shafer, a leader shaping green spaces in Burleson, Texas, just outside the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. Daniel plays a vital role in Burleson's Parks and Recreation Department, managing a network of over 30 parks, with a rich background in recreation and sports. From overseeing major capital projects like synthetic turf, upgrades on their 15-field baseball complex, to innovative playground renovations inspired by community feedback. Daniel and his team handle it all, from weekly mowing and maintenance to large events. For Daniel, park maintenance is much more than mowing, blowing, and going. It's detailed planning, proactive care, and creating spaces where communities can truly thrive. Get ready to dive into the passion and strategy that keep Burleson's parks vibrant and community-driven.
First originally planned on, he reached out and said, hey, good luck. And I said, do I need luck?
No, you got it. You got it. All right, we're live. This is Craig LeBlanc again with the Daily Parks and Rec Show Facility Maintenance Edition, our 10:30 a.m. show every Monday through Thursday, where we just talk shop about maintaining the park systems and all that goes into that. So I have special guests with me, Daniel Shafer from Burleson, Texas, right outside of the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. How are you doing this morning, Daniel?
I'm doing great. We got lucky. There were some pretty bad storms. I don't know if you've kept up with that, but there was some tornadoes west of us and some pretty high winds. And as it got closer, it hit north of us. So we were pretty fortunate on that. Otherwise, we'd be scrambling around for storm cleanup this morning.
Yeah.
So,
I actually helped a cousin of mine scale up one of his businesses that dealt with storms and hail damage and winds, and he's in Fort Worth, and I was shocked at how much hail and storms y'all get rolling through there.
Yeah, it's that time of year. It's been pretty light this year compared to last year as far as like rain goes. We've had higher winds, I think, this year, but rain last year killed us. But it's been fairly decent this year as far as it goes to rain. And in Texas, we complain about it when we get a bunch of rain, but then once the summer months hit, we're like, hey, we need some rain.
Right.
So it's kind of a give or take opportunity there.
Yeah. Now, how much does weather, we can kind of roll it into facility maintenance, but how much does weather really affect you? I imagine there's a lot of cleanup. You have all these, how many properties do y'all kind of maintain?
We have a little over 30 parks in total. And when it comes to weather and how it can affect us, really from a mowing standpoint is where it really gets us. We have properties that my staff maintain, and our goal is to hit those on 7-day cycles. So basically once a week. And then we have some right-of-ways that are contracted out that are bi-weekly or monthly. And so if we get rain, say today, a heavy rain, that could potentially delay us 2 days in the process. And then grass grows really fast this time of year, or weeds if you have some weeds. And then you start getting phone calls of, hey, why hasn't this been mowed and why hasn't this? And you're like, well, we're not able to with how wet it is. And So it could delay you pretty good, and the struggle is trying to find some of those quote unquote rainy day projects of what you still can manage depending on how hard of a rain it is. And so you always got to be flexible. Try to navigate. We have a dry erase board in our maintenance shop of rainy day projects and list those out. So we're not trying to think on the fly that day of, hey, what are we going to do today? I'm trying to be a little more proactive in that approach, because otherwise you're stuck and you're trying to scramble of, okay, what can we accomplish?
Now, how did you get into this industry?
So I got in the park operations side about 3 years ago. My background is heavy actually on the recreation side. Growing up, I played all sports from football, basketball, baseball, and really enjoyed playing those. Went to school at Tarleton State, continued playing intramural sports, and worked actually in the intramural department. I really wanted to go into fitness. That's what my education is in, is fitness management. So I wanted to either own my own gym, personal training, but there's ups and downs with that and not really consistency. And so I had a really good friend of mine who was the grad assistant in the intramural department who had a good background in recreation, and he kind of changed my thought process on career wise. And so I started with the city of Fort Worth as a recreation programmer. I oversaw some special events, youth programming, adult programming at one of the community centers. Ended up coming to Burleson almost 8 years ago. It'll be 8 years in August, and did kind of the same thing, just a change of scenery for me. And then 3 years ago, one of my good mentors, David Lopez, who's now the director for the city of Kyle down in Austin area, was our deputy director of our parks. And my career aspiration is to be a director one day. So we actually had an opening for our park superintendent job. And he asked if I wanted to do it in the interim, just to kind of get a feel to see, hey, is that something that I'd be interested in? And so I did that for a little over 3 months, and then they opened it up for applications and interviews, and was fortunate enough to get the job. And so the last 3 years, I've been kind of learning on the fly, using David as a resource, using Joseph, who's been on the show, as a resource, just different people to try to expand my knowledge in park operations, because it's 3 years in and you're still learning stuff all the time. And so I don't think you can ever be a quote unquote expert in it all. You just try to find where your niche is, and hopefully you have people, whether side to the side of you or the people under you, that are those experts in specific fields within the operation. So yeah, it's been fun. I enjoy this side of it. Not that I didn't enjoy recreation as well, but it's helped me kind of become more balanced in the overall whole entire department instead of just rec heavy or park operations heavy.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you don't have a maintenance or a golf background or something, because I think I can ask some good questions here.
Sure.
So here you are, and it's often that people who aspire to be a park director find themselves in is that they understand one part of being a park director really well, but there's a couple other big chunks, and maintenance is one of them that I think is not well understood. So it's probably going to, like you said, round you out really well to understand that. But what are some things that you've kind of picked up over the years that maybe you didn't expect coming into facilities maintenance?
Really, I think just how the whole entire operation works. I think from the outside looking in, you think of park maintenance as mowing, blowing, and going. Is the saying we kind of say here. We mow the park, we blow off the sidewalks, and then, hey, we're on to the next spot. But there's so much more that goes into it. So if you have a park that has a playground, okay, you got to look at the safety of that playground from an inspection standpoint. If you have restrooms, you got to think about the cleanliness of it. You got to think about the plumbing. You got to think of the structure itself and all the fine details to keep that structure being able to be utilized by the public, and how forward facing those parks are, from people are there every day, constantly using them, constantly giving feedback, and how do we approach the operations of that facility in a proactive approach to get ahead of any potential complaints or issues or repairs that need to be done or anything like that. And so everything that goes into it is a lot more detailed and more thought out than I ever thought of. I thought, hey, we just mow the park and everything else takes care of itself. And now being in the nitty gritty of it all, that it's a pretty big undertaking and takes a full team and operation to be able to have the community enjoy these spaces.
Now, would you say, if you had to just back of the napkin throw a percentage at, would you say half of it is this mowing, blowing, and going, and the other half is all the other stuff?
I think it really depends on the season. I think in the spring season, as it gets hotter here in Texas, it kind of fades out a little bit more. But in the spring season, it's pretty heavy. It'd probably be 75% of that is mowing and going. And then during the summer, it kind of fades a little bit as the grass isn't growing as much. And then something that I didn't really think about is during the winter time. Okay, grass isn't growing, so what are you guys doing? And so we build out a winter project list of different things that, hey, maybe it takes a team of 4 or 5 people to do, or it's more of a specialty type project or something like that, that during the spring and the mowing season, you just don't necessarily have the time for. That could be anything from some overhaul of tree trimming, that could be some concrete repairs, that could be multiple things, painting, those kind of things. But during the spring season, I would say about 25% of that, 20 to 25, is other things, from just general maintenance of inspections, of different repairs, and all of those kind of things. So that's probably, it kind of just depends on the season for us.
Now, does all the special event setup and tear down, attending, all, does that come out of your department, or is there someone else that helps for all that?
So we have, on the rec side, we have a special events supervisor. She has a small team of 3 or 4 part-time staff that do that. But yeah, we do the setup of helping set up barricades, help with trash cleanup, any other random things that might need to be set up, from light towers or movie screens or anything like that. And then just the day of operation, we help and supplement with that. So yeah, that's part of it too, that I was aware of, being on the rec side, doing some of those special events. But it takes a lot of coordination. Yeah, we're under the same department, but it takes that coordination between that rec supervisor and whether it's me or a park superintendent currently, of managing that, and then working those overtime hours, because all those events are after my guys are off. We work a 6:30 to 3 schedule. And so coordinating that and trying to distribute, of not having burnout from the guys of working all these events. And so having one staff member work this event, another staff member work a different event, so it kind of spreads out the wealth. Instead of having one group of people doing all the events, we try to spread that around the whole team.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a real thing, because if shout out to Brian Dixon, he's in your spot over in Henry County, Georgia. He did a show with us last week, and I was blown away by, he said, Craig, Fridays and Mondays are just for special events, and then weekends. It's like that. He said, we haven't had a Friday or a Monday off and or a weekend off in probably years, where they do so much in special events. And if you're always assigned, if you don't have a big enough staff, you're always assigned a weekend that's got a special event. How many special events do y'all run through your town in a year?
We're not quite to that where it's every weekend, and we're not involved in every single special event. Sometimes it's a smaller event that the special event staff they can manage and take care of. It's our larger events, like our Boo Bash, which is our Halloween festival, our 4th of July, our Easter egg hunt. We have a Hot Sounds of Summer concert series that's every Friday, from that first week of June all the way through July 4th. July 4th is our last kickoff of that. I mean, there's probably over 50 some events, and we helped probably, I'd say probably about half of those there. And that's just the special events. I could talk about our baseball complex. We have a 15 field baseball complex that we run. So starting last weekend all the way through the end of August, we have tournaments booked. And we're fortunate enough now that we just turned those over to synthetic turf, the infields.
Right.
So it's less, quote unquote, less maintenance from a tournament perspective. You're not having to drag the fields. You're not have to chalk them. You're not going to have to do that, but you have to set up the bases, which doesn't take a lot of time. So we're not having as many hours dedicated to getting the fields prepped and ready. It's more trash cleanup, restroom cleaning up, and all of that. So it's less of a labor intensive work from a tournament perspective, but we have that side of it too, not just special events. If you think of tournaments as special events, those are added on, but we separate those two out into two different sections.
Yeah. Now, are you in any of the project management side?
Yeah, so that was one thing that I think our department does really, really well on. Our director, Jen Basham, of giving opportunities to individuals, whether that's myself, whether that's Jessica Martinez, who's our deputy director now, of how can they help us develop career-wise to wherever we want to go, whether that's being a director, deputy director, city management, whatever, and how can we grow in different aspects. So yeah, I've been able to oversee several capital improvement projects. I was just talking about the synthetic turf conversion. I oversaw that whole entire process. I've done some playground renovations, parking lot expansions, restroom installations, and so there's about 8 or 9 that I've had some heavy involvement, being that project manager over those. And we have a pretty intensive process how we go through with those. And I'll go into like our playground renovations. We do a lot of community engagement. I know some larger cities and some other cities, it's the city itself gets to determine what kind of playground is going to go in that space. Well, our process is really more community driven. So we'll send out a survey to the community of, hey, this playground is on the project plan to get renovated and replaced. Here's a list of questions. One, are you a resident of the city? Do you live in that neighborhood? And then we go into specifics of, hey, what kind of amenities would you like in that playground? Do you want climbing features? Do you want taller slides? Do you want a merry-go-round? What all do you want in that space? And then after that, we'll go into, I'll take all that feedback. I'll go to different playground manufacturers that we've messed with or dealt with in the past, whether usually about 8 or 9 different manufacturers. And we say, hey, here's our budget for this project. Here is what the community wants within this space. Here are some things that from internally that we would like to see in this space. Give us your best design. We want renderings and all of that. And we'll, once we get that feedback, we'll internally pick our top 3 or 4 options. Then we'll send it back out to the community, and they get to vote for which playground that they would like to see in that space. Once we get that information, then we present to our parks board, we present to our city council, and then we kind of go from there. It's kind of really, it draws out the process a little bit, but it really gives the community a buy-in option for that space. And so we really like that, that, hey, the community is the one who really built this park and this playground. Compared to some cities, it's, hey, the department, they'll take a little bit of feedback and stuff that they've gotten, but really the department itself kind of gets to pick what playground that they want in that space.
Yeah. And when it comes to project management, had you had any exposure to that at all, aside from just understanding that, you know, it happens?
No, not really. I mean, the most that is really, I kind of tied it into special event program planning and kind of used some of that to this. We've built a standard operating procedures checkpoint. It's not full encompassing. Every project's a little bit different, but kind of need to knows like, hey, permitting processes, who you would need to contact within the city if you have questions for specific things and based on the project. And so kind of learning on the fly, and using your resources, whether it's David Lopez, like I mentioned earlier, he had a lot of experience in that because he worked for the city of Dallas prior to coming to Burleson, and just kind of using your resources and learning on the fly. You kind of make some mistakes along the way. As long as they're not too big, that's okay. But you kind of learn from them and move forward, and know, hey, for the next one, hey, this is the learning experience from the previous one.
Right.
And so, but it's fun. That's what I like about here is you're able to learn on the fly. Mistakes are okay. Don't be afraid to fail. And we're here to grow and develop as a group.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those of you that haven't experienced what it takes to push a project through a city, I know everybody's different, but it can be intimidating, the amount of paperwork and boxes and people you got to get permission from and notify.
Yeah.
What are some of the departments that are obvious ones? Obviously, you got to get it from legal and accounting.
Legal and accounting, public works, whether there's easement rights that you have to have, or any utilities, whether it's water, electric. So you might have to deal with Encore here. Development services, our permitting office. So if there's depending on the type of structure, there might have to be some special permit you have to have. Floodplain. So if it's in a floodplain, flood permits. What are some others? The biggest challenge, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say well, no, go ahead and tell me what's the biggest challenge. And then
I think the biggest challenge, depending on the project, is managing multiple contractors to get the same end result.
Oh,
so if you have a project, like some are turnkey where you're dealing with one specific contractor. But I'll use like the restroom renovation but install that we did at one of our parks. It was a turnkey structure that it came built already, but I had to deal with Encore. I had to deal with a plumber in our water department. And so managing and trying to get, hey, when the structure is ready to be dropped and delivered, that everybody is available at the same time to basically get everything installed and ready to go. Or another project was a playground renovation, but we also did a parking lot expansion with that. And so you're dealing with an irrigation company, you're dealing with the parking lot company, you're dealing with the playground manufacturer, not only the installer of the playground, but you got the surfacing company. And so you're dealing with all these different entities and trying to get everything done in a timely manner based on their schedules, because that project's might not be the only project they're working on. They can probably have 7, 8, 9 other projects they're working on too. And of course, for us, selfishly, our project's the most important. But they have other projects they're working on. So yeah, it could be a challenge trying to maneuver and manage and all of that. And so that to me is the biggest challenge of working with all the different vendors that you potentially have.
Contractors. And then you so what do you need from them? I know what a scope of work and then a schedule, I think, are the two things you kind of need. Well, and some kind of bond.
Yeah. So for us, we have a sales tax percentage that gets put into a fund for us for capital projects. We haven't had to do a bond for park projects, which is pretty nice. But scope, schedule, and budget are the biggest things. I'm in a mentorship program with our internally with our director over capital engineering who does our streets program and all of that. And those are the three things that he has been telling me are most important. Your schedule is most important, so it gets done in a timely manner. Your scope is number one important, because are you detailed enough in your scope that you get everything that you want accomplished within that project done, or are you going through this project and you're like, oh crap, I forgot we need to do this, and so then you're changing the scope, which changes the budget. You're adding things on. So if you can get those three things right at the very beginning and have that ironed out, in theory, your process should be smoother.
In theory.
In theory, yeah.
Now,
there's always hiccups.
That's it. And I think that's something that you have to prepare for when managing projects, is that there's always going to be something that was left out. Some stuff you just don't discover till you get through, into a project. And then you're speaking as a former master electrician that managed a bunch of projects. You don't discover that the wiring in the pole is bad until you start to turn the lights on. And then all of a sudden you realize all the wiring has to be replaced.
Yeah.
Completely changes the scope of work and stuff. How often have you gotten a project through with zero hiccups yet?
Zero hiccups. I can't think of one. Now there's others. I mean, some are minor.
Right.
Some are different than others. Some, I mean, like I said, I'm still fairly new to the capital project management in general, and so there's going to be things that I don't think about. Like for example, for like the first turf conversion, I didn't think of a floodplain permit that we needed to have to go through that process. And so like we were already getting started, and then Michelle McCullough, our deputy director in development services, was like, hey, you guys started this project, but I don't have a floodplain permit. And I'm like, oh shoot, okay, well, what do I need to do? And so I'm scrambling around trying to get that pushed through pretty quick. And then we just did a park, Centennial Park, a playground renovation, and we didn't have the full scope of what we truly wanted in that. We just thought of, hey, we just want a new playground because the playground was outdated. But then we thought of, hey, the footprint of this playground is smaller, so hey, we're going to need to expand our irrigation system. There's some landscape improvements that need to be done. Do we want to add some trees to the park? Do we want to do this, this, and this? And so as we were going through, there was more added things to that project that weren't in the original scope. And so we had to find money if we wanted to do those things. And so we were able to find money to do some of the projects. And then sometimes it's feedback from the community after we get done with the project that, hey, we didn't really think about. So that specific project, we got feedback later in the process of, hey, we would like a wrought iron fence around the entire, because there's a fairly busy street that's not directly next to it, but if kids are wandering around and hey, there's a potential of a kid running into a street, and we didn't think about that. So later in the process of, hey, let's add a fence. And then we added a fence, and we had 2 open areas, gates, so it's easy access that didn't have gates. And we got feedback of, hey, we would like to have gates because that, yes, there's a barrier, but there's still an opening that kids can run out. So we added a gate later on to those. So there's always things that we try to do from community feedback that we get. You just try early in the process to get all of those ironed out, but there's always going to be some things that pop up no matter what. I feel like you're never going to get everything.
Right. I'm already seeing we probably need to do a project management series.
Yeah,
and maybe
for sure.
bring in some veterans to that you learn from, because it really is quite a beast, and it's shocking that there's not much that can prepare you for it. It's like a lot of things in Parks and Rec that just outside of doing it, you just gotta dive in.
Yeah, it's easy to have things on paper like a checklist item of, hey, these are the processes, but until you actually get into it and actually roll with it and actually get hands-on experience, I feel like that checklist is a great starting point. But yeah, until you actually get into it, there's so much more to it than even that bullet point. So
yeah. And how much of would you say that's part of your personal time? Is there anyone else helping you with this, or is it pretty much on your shoulders?
We kind of have it divvied up depending on the project. So for me right now, I don't have any projects that I'm wrapped up with those. We do have a couple projects that are out to bid or in the construction design phase that are bigger scale projects. One's a community park that's going to be about 40 acres that will have adult softball fields, parking lots, nature play, an amphitheater, full big community park that will be great. That's in the construction design phase. And then we're getting ready to be out to bid, if it's not at bid already, for Shannon Creek Park, which is just an open space park right now that has no development on it. That we're going to be adding a pond, a lot of trails, and some different natural features throughout that. And so that will be kind of a tag team approach with a couple people. I would say this last year I had a pretty heavy plate with projects. So that was probably 50% of my time. And just like I was saying, as far as the percentage of mowing and all of that, it kind of just depends on the season and how many projects we have going on. This next year is a little bit lighter load of projects. These last 3 years, we've been really heavy in projects and playground renovations. Just from years past of not doing that, our goal is to every 10 to 12 years to have a replacement ready to go for a playground. We find it's after that 10-year mark, you can upkeep them and they could be still really, really beneficial to the community. But finding replacement parts if something goes down, because the playground industry is changing every year.
Right.
So if something changes, are you going to be able to get that same part 10 years from now? Or are you going to have to completely shut down a part of that playground because you can't get the piece of equipment that you need to replace it? So that's our goal. Does it happen? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it could be a 12 or 13-year process. It really just depends on funding as well. Do we have the available capital space to fund those projects on that timeline? So really just trying to keep up from before those 3 years and try to get to that point of replacing those every 10 years. So I would say we're probably 75% of the way there. So we've been moving and going with projects through the last 3 years. So it's going to slow down a little bit here these next couple of years, but we have bigger projects like the community park and then Shannon Creek, that nature development park that's coming on board.
Yeah, and I don't think there's a park that exists that has all new stuff. There's always the park system is probably didn't start yesterday in your city, and some of these parks are 50, even 100 years old, and they're constantly needing maintenance issues and projects that need to be put forward. But where are y'all at as far as like updating all of your baseball fields and playgrounds, or would you say about half of them are pretty in good shape, up to date, and the other half are some kind of backlog?
Yeah, I don't think we have any playgrounds that are like, wow, they really need to be replaced. We do have, off the top of my head, probably 4 or 5 that are within that 10 to 11, getting close to that time frame, that need to be replaced pretty soon. Our baseball complex, we only have one. That's 15 fields. It was built in 2010. We just put in a little over $4 million for that synthetic turf renovation. So we just completed that in March, actually, the final part of that. So we're pretty good from that standpoint on that facility. We have 15 field soccer complex that we did 2 years ago. We regraded it in that. So from a sports complex side, we're pretty good. We do have a 3 adult softball field complex that's pretty outdated, and neglect isn't the right term, but it's been kind of not a high priority. But those fields are getting relocated to the community park, so we're pretty close to that transition of changing those fields out. But I think from an infrastructure standpoint, I think where we are maybe a little bit behind are the things that you don't really think about, of like low water crossings and culverts underneath those, or bridges that might need to be constructed for those low water crossing areas, and some parking lots. So that type of infrastructure, I think, is where we're not necessarily at the point we want to be. We have some plans in our capital project program. We do a 10-year CIP and a 5-year. Those change from year to year, but those show our goals for those next 10 years. And we also have our master plan, our parks master plan, coming live here in the next couple months. We've been working through that to get that adopted, so that will give us our roadmap of where we want to go. And so I would say from the infrastructure that you don't really think about is where we're a little bit more behind than the shiny new things, the playgrounds, the restrooms, all of that, that people really think about when they go to a park.
Let's talk about that master plan a little bit. I know that
Sure.
that can help as, be somewhat of a guidepost to how you chew through all this maintenance backlog and kind of what you want to do. So how long have y'all been working on that? Who contributes to that? How much did that thing cost? Did y'all bring in like a third party to say, help us sort all this out? Or
Yeah, so we have Kimberly Horn. They're our consultant for the project. It's been over a year process easily. They do a really good job. They've done a lot of, they go through and do an inventory. It's been a kind of a collaborative approach of from us, what we have in our inventory, and them going site visits to collect an inventory. They do a lot of community engagement, whether that's surveys, whether that's pop-up at events or different things to get feedback from the community of what people would like to see in the parks system. They also have a lot of data of just trends in the parks in general, whether that's from maintenance, whether that's special events, programming, and all of that. And then they kind of they split the city up into sections of, okay, where are we really good at this specific type of program or event or anything, and where do we host those compared to, so we know where we're lacking within the city, and like, okay, that means, hey, we might need to look at whether that's programming or developing and purchasing land to develop a park in this side of town. And so community feedback is really big on that. And then from an internal standpoint, we kind of just really go through, they give us their iterations of that, and we kind of just piecemeal it and kind of review and see, is the information that's in it correct? So do we have X amount of trail mileage within the system? What they have compared to what we have, are they the same? Do we have the same amount of playgrounds? And so for our end, it's really just double checking that everything is correct. And then once it's finalized, then our city council adopts that, and that gives us that roadmap for future improvements, whether that's from a staffing perspective, because we're putting in there based on, hey, if we develop this based on how the plan is, this is what our staffing model is going to need to be able to keep the level of service that we currently have. Otherwise, your level of service is going to drop. So it kind of gives us a roadmap, not just from what the community wants and what we need from an infrastructure, but what are we going to need to maintain these spaces to what the community wants? Because sometimes that gets missed. You don't think about that, and then you're trying to be proactive or reactive to, hey, this is what we need to maintain this space for our service levels, or our service levels are going to have to change.
Yeah. And so maybe the general premise of a master plan is, where are we?
Absolutely.
And let's verify all that. And where are we can mean we have this park, and to refurbish it is going to, this is the money we need just to get everything up to the current standard that we're saying we want to have. And then where do we want to go? And that might include building a whole nother park or any type of other stuff you got going on. And this is, like you said, a year-long process. And then it also includes, you're saying it includes here's what it'll take to maintain these, both equipment and manpower ongoing. That's also in that number?
Yeah. So every department can kind of, and consultant firm, you can put whatever you want in that master plan. So it's do you want to have that maintenance portion in there, or do you want to just have it as, hey, this is where we're at and this is where we want to go in the future from an amenity standpoint or programming, special events, or anything like that. And so you kind of can piecemeal it however you want. It's really just going back to project management. What is the scope of the project going to be? What all do you want in that? And so that was one thing that we wanted to add, because it kind of will give that guideline to our city council to where, hey, if we're getting all these new things and getting different amenities, different things that we don't currently have based on the trends of park and recreation and based on where we might be lacking in our system, whether it's, hey, we need to add pickleball courts because pickleball is the craze, right? Or hey, basketball courts or more baseball fields, whatever it is. If we put that maintenance piece into it of what equipment or what personnel we might need, then that gives us the ammunition that, since it's going to get adopted by city council, of like, hey, this is what we're going to need from a personnel standpoint to do that, or this is the cause of not having those things. So it kind of plays hand in hand with that, and it gives council an idea of, hey, 5 years from now, hey, we're going to be probably asking for this if these things all come true into fruition based on this plan.
Yeah, and that can be quite an undertaking. So that was and you participated in that whole process during your time there?
Not the whole thing. I've been kind of piecemealed from time to time, kind of reviewing certain sections more on the park operation side, the amenity side of where we're at, making sure that whatever's put in that master plan is correct for what we actually have out in the field. So that's been more of my standpoint on it. Jen, our director, she's been the heavy hitter, if you want to say, within that. And then our two deputy directors have been pretty involved with that.
We may have to have like a live panel where we just try to compartmentalize all things maintenance, from, cutting the grass, maintaining the playgrounds, project management, special events, master planning. Is there any other buckets I'm leaving out in the whole side of facility maintenance?
Well, I mean, so you kind of talked, so cutting the grass, but you think of the inspections, you got that. So whether that's court surfacing inspections, whether that's restroom inspections, light inspections, parking lot inspections, trail inspections, there's a lot of inspections in general, just preventative maintenance things. Then you got your irrigation team that does everything irrigation wise. So if the grass gets water, you've almost got two different types of maintenance. So you got your athletic field maintenance, and then you got your just general park maintenance.
And what's general park maintenance?
Just your mowing, your mowing and stuff of your general parks. You've got some cities will have landscape teams. We don't. We contract out a lot of our landscape services. Some cities will have litter teams, so teams that do litter services. We have a park maintenance person that does all the restroom cleaning and litter pickup of all our parks. They have a routine of which parks they hit every day, which parks are a couple times a week, just depending on frequency during the week and how heavy used those parks are.
What about equipment?
Yeah, maintenance equipment. So you got your typical zero turns. You got tractors with boom mowers. We've got chemical application equipment. So you got aerators to aerate fields.
Urban forestry, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, urban forestry, and we have an arborist on staff, but we don't have a forestry division. We actually just applied for a grant to look at hiring a urban forester to add to our team to kind of be more proactive on the forestry front. I know, like, for example, the city of Dallas, and Joseph might have touched on this, they have a whole forestry department. And so a lot of bigger cities have that. For us, we just don't have that, but that is something that we've definitely thought about, and just trying to think of different ways we can make that happen. Applying for grants is one of those ways, and whether we'll find out hopefully in the next couple months if that's something we are awarded or not.
Now, is
So
that something you participate in, or you just kind of in any of the grant writing or anything like that?
yeah, so that one specifically, I applied for that one. We don't have a grant writer for the city, so really any grants, it's done internally based on the department on who writes those out. And so
So what would qualify as a natural fit for a superintendent or maintenance person as far as a grant writing? So anything to do with, say, urban forestry, obviously that would kind of end up in the superintendent side.
yeah, and I think so. The Texas Park and Wildlife, they have a bunch of different grants that you can have and or apply for. It really just depends on what kind of grant that you're looking at, and
Mhm.
the larger the grant, it might take multiple people to kind of write that together.
Right.
The urban forestry forester position, there wasn't really, it wasn't super complex. It was really more of getting with our HR department, creating a job description, what their responsibilities would be, what their pay would be, hey, what would their day-to-day responsibilities would be, and kind of give us a general, basically, game plan of what that position would do and how it would benefit your city. And so it was pretty straightforward. It wasn't as complex as some others, and we didn't have to have any specific data to go along with that. Compared to some of the larger grants like Texas Park and Wildlife have, there's data that you need to have support. There's a whole lot of different things that you have, so it's going to take more than one person, more than likely, to kind of put that together.
Okay, so this is what I have so far. Uh, it's this is quite an extensive job here. Okay, so general park maintenance, athletic maintenance, irrigation, project management, inspections, master planning, landscape teams, special events, urban forestry, litter team, restroom cleanup, equipment maintenance, grant writing on maintenance opportunities. And then I added trade staff and people managing. How do y'all, so y'all, do y'all have any tradesmen that work for y'all, or like a halfway electrician, plumber,
We
carpenter?
we don't we don't have that. We have a facilities team that does all of our city facilities, that has electricians and stuff on staff, that we're able to get assistance from them from time to time. But based on their workload, a lot of those kind of things, we have to outsource currently.
So that's managing third-party contractors.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, those are when you have, like, say, an emergency plumbing or electrical issue, that's not something that can really go through project management. That's going to be
Right.
handled a little bit different. So what is that? How do y'all frame that one?
Yeah, so we have a lot of local, I would say local contractors that we deal with on a regular basis,
Mhm.
whether it's plumbing or electrical, that it's really just giving them a call and saying, hey, here's what we got going on, and then meeting with them on site.
Mhm.
Um, Depending on obviously, if it's a safety issue, hey, just take care of it, and then we'll figure out the money or whatever after.
Mhm.
But if it's something that's not a safety issue, then hey, we'll get quotes from them. Depending on the costs, there's different specific policies we have to go. So if it's over $3,000, we have to go to a hub vendor, a historically underutilized business, to reach out to one of those vendors to get a
Mhm.
quote from them. If it's over 10,000, then we have to look at getting multiple bids. We have to have at least three. If it's over $50,000 job, then we have to do an RFP or something like that and get bids in that way. So it really just depends on that. But if it's a safety, hey, we're gonna go through and just get it
Get it
completed.
done. Yeah.
And so, but we have a couple electrician companies that we deal with, couple plumbing, couple different specific trades that are contractors that we've dealt with in the past that we reach out to for those specific options.
Yeah, and now that I'm kind of spelling all this out and I'm seeing how we can go deep in each one of these categories, but I'm seeing how, being a master of rec sports does not prepare you for any of this kind of stuff
Yeah,
being thrown at you.
absolutely. And we have some team members that have kind of done a little bit of everything. So there's
Mhm.
some things that we don't necessarily need to call an electrician for,
Right.
or a plumber for that. Hey, they are able to do that. We have one of our staff members that he used to own his own concrete business. So from not huge, large scale concrete projects, but whether it's a concrete pad here or there to put a picnic table or a bench, like we're just able to do that kind of stuff in house, and it
Mhm.
saves the city some money to do that. So we don't have anybody that's an electrician or a master plumber or anything like that, but we do have quite a few staff that are pretty well rounded that know just enough to where if it's something that needs to be taken care of in house, we can. But we are able to call our facilities team and one, whether maybe it's just troubleshooting, like, hey, we can't figure out why this light system isn't working or whatever. They can come and assist us and kind of give us general directions. And hey, if you
Mhm.
guys buy the parts, hey, we can install it or something like that. And so we have
Yeah.
a pretty good working relationship with them.
Now, how about on the people management side? And I also wanted to touch on software before. Man, I can't
Sure.
believe we're already 50 minutes.
Yeah.
But so who's hiring, firing, when it comes to managing the people, maybe on the hiring side and letting them go side, that's all falls on you, or you have like an HR department that helps with that at all, or?
So our HR department, their involvement is, hey, if we have a position that's vacant, we reach out to them and they do all the job postings, get all
Mm,
that side situated. And then from the hiring standpoint, that is our park superintendent, TJ Arthur, and our athletic supervisor, Zach James. They do all the hiring and managing of the people.
mm,
Um, my direct reports are Philip, who's our irrigation person, Zach, and TJ. So they report to me, and they do all the day to day managing of the people. Hey, these are our work orders and our tasks for the day to get completed. These are some special projects we need to be aware of. So they manage the day to day operations. Right now, I'm over in athletics to manage the day to day. Zach, him and his wife, they just had their second baby a couple weeks ago, so he's out on paternity leave. So I fill in the gaps where needed, and kind of am just a support system for them, to whether it's help organizing in any way or for questions or anything like that. But the day-to-day managing of the people, that falls onto them. I just transitioned into this role earlier, about October. I was the park superintendent in TJ's role, so I did oversee our mowing crews, our other maintenance crews, our irrigation crews. So I was that day-to-day person,
mm. Yeah.
until this October this last year.
Now, how about let's talk a little bit about that irrigation piece. I'm learning that is becoming that is quite a large piece when it comes to maintaining everything you got. Tell me more about the
Absolutely.
irrigation side.
So on our athletics side, we have Isaiah. He's a hybrid. So he does the irrigation, PMs, repairs, and all that for our baseball complex. But he also does general maintenance from mowing, weed eating, landscaping, all of that. So he's kind of
Mhm.
got a hybrid approach. Now Philip on the park side, all he does is irrigation. That's the only thing he does. Now in our budget cycle this year, we're asking for another irrigation person because we have one person that manages all of our irrigation system in the entire city. Um, he is very overwhelmed. There's a lot of repairs, and depending on the repair, it might be, hey, a 1 day repair, it might be a couple day repairs. And so then we get behind on doing PMs of those systems to be more. Our goal is always to try to be more proactive than reactive, but for irrigation, we're definitely more reactive at this point. It was kind of eye-opening so all these projects that we've been doing, we've added irrigation, whether it's more of the park irrigation, or hey, there wasn't irrigation at this park before, so now there is irrigation. And so we actually just did to basically back us up for why we need another person. We showed, hey, 3 years ago when I started, here's how many zones that we operated at that time compared to where we're at 3 years later. And we've almost easily, probably more than doubled what we had before, but we still have the same person doing the irrigation. So that hopefully is enough ammunition, like, hey, we need that other person, whether it's one person's going through and doing all the PMs and identifying what the repairs are, and that other person is following up with those repairs, or how we manage having a 2-person team is still something we got to think of logistically. But yeah, we definitely feel the need and for that, because from an aesthetic look, irrigation is really, really key to your park.
Right. Oh yeah, I was talking with someone the other day, and I was asking him what's like if I'm trying to make my lawn look pretty. He's like, you got to attack 2 things at the same time. You got to get your dirt samples, find out what's going on at the dirt level, and then you have to have irrigation. And if you don't have those 2 things, you're almost wasting your time on all the other stuff.
Yeah, and we actually, so our soccer complex that we redid a couple of years ago, we've had some challenges with it. The soil is tough to manage and for the turf health. And we met with his name is Weston. He actually works at Texas A&M University for their sports maintenance teams. And to add on to a third for you is aeration is really key.
Here's another one.
And I didn't think about that in too much thought. He's more of a turf management specialist. So that's another one you can add to your list of just turf management in general. But watering, aeration, and then whatever fertilizer or anything you might need for that soil to have that turf thrive. But he said aeration might be the most important, honestly.
Really? And so he's saying that if you have too much of this compacted soil, nothing's going to succeed that you put on it.
Yeah, because if your soil's too compacted, you could water the crap out of it, but it's not going to get down to the level that it needs to. So your roots will go deeper. Yeah. You're just going to have a lot of runoff.
Now, anything on pesticides, chemicals, fertilizers? I know we hadn't touched much on that.
Yeah, so we have one person that currently does that. I say one person. So we have our athletics team has one person, and then our parks team has one person that does that. We do our pre-emergence in the spring and the fall. We do different post-emergence depending on how effective those pre-emergence were. They're in charge of our aeration. We use it's called Top Choice. It's a chemical you mix with water for ants. It's really a one time a year you spray it, and then for the most part, it gets rid of the ants throughout the year. From a fungicide standpoint, we really don't do much of that. You see that more on the golf maintenance side. And so we have a detailed calendar plan that shows, hey, this is our month we need to do pre-emergent. This is the month that we need to look for the Top Choice for ant control. Here's when we need to look at doing aeration. We don't do aeration on all of our fields, but we definitely look at doing that on our sports fields, and then some of our larger, more highly utilized facilities and parks. So yeah, we have a calendar that's built out that has all of those detailed out.
Now, and then lastly, what are y'all using as far as software to manage everything we've mentioned or anything we've just mentioned?
Yeah, so we currently use Cartograph. We've been on board with that for a little over 2 years. Our public works team utilized it a little over a year prior to us taking.
How do you spell that? Cartograph?
Cartograph, Tegraph.
And that is what, a project management software or something, or is it a
It's a work
work
order system.
system?
And so basically you're able to go in there and all of our tasks for the day. So like I mentioned earlier in the show, our goal is to do 7-day cycles for all of our properties. And so, hey, these are our properties we want to mow on Mondays. So whoever's in charge of those properties, they have tablets. It sends them that task. When they complete that task, they open it up. Here's the people that worked with them there that day. Here's the equipment they used that day, and here's how many hours for each one of those. And then they close it out, and they go to the next one. So it gives us not a full cost, but a better cost for the maintenance needs of that. So that's from the mowing side. Now we also have our routine inspections. So if we want to do light inspections every quarter, those will pop up to our what we call our hot shot crew leader, who does a lot of the random inspections and all of that. Of hey, this will pop up, and hey, this is our light inspection. So we're going to go to all of our parks that have lights, and maybe you need to come in earlier those days to do those inspections. Our playground inspections are built in that, and we do those bi-weekly for every playground. And so those automatically get sent to them. So it takes the thinking about it out, and it just sends those automatically. So you build those in on the back end. Now, if something pops up to where, hey, there's a mowing crew that's mowing, and then they notice there's an irrigation repair or a fence is damaged and they need to repair it. And so then they can create a task for that specifically and say, hey, okay, fence repair, this is what I did, how much time, and then they close it out. So it kind of gives a full understanding of that. And so at the end of the month, you can pull a report and, hey, here's everything that we did for this month from a maintenance standpoint. So you can make it as comprehensive as you want, or you can make it as simple as you want, but you're able to also, as you're going, be able to create tasks that are one-offs that you might not, they aren't on those necessarily routine frequencies.
I'd like to dig into that one a little bit more. Maybe we can schedule a show with you and Joseph at the same time. We kind of roll through these one at a time. If you have
I think Joseph, I think the city of Dallas, I think they use what's called CityWorks, if I'm not mistaken. That's another software system. We're actually going to do a demo, I think, with them in the next couple of months just to kind of see. We've been, Cartograph has been good, but we're just curious on what other software systems might have that might be more of an advantage or whatnot.
Yeah. Well, man, it was great having you on the show today. Sorry about that, man. We had some big storm last time, just took us out. Like I just take us out in the middle of the show, but
that time of year, no problem at all.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time, and let's definitely do this again. We'll chat offline, see if we can keep this thing going.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I signed up for a couple more. I think one the next couple months. But if there's any specific topics or anything like that, I'm happy to join on.
Yeah.
And I think having Joseph and I on the same call would be fun too.
Yeah, that way I can go back and forth. I know there's different ways for different cities to handle same problems, but
absolutely.
Yeah, appreciate your time, man. Have a great week.
Yeah, you too. Thanks a lot, Greg.
Take care, Daniel.
All right. Bye.
Okay, so that was Daniel Shafer over at Burleson, Texas, little city right outside of Fort Worth, 60,000 people. I love how he really didn't have a maintenance background like a lot of the other maintenance guys do. And here he is just being thrown into it, and look at all the stuff he has to handle. I think all y'all heard me mention it, but I'm going to really kind of organize this list now that I'm kind of seeing it all laid out as I interview more and more Parks and Rec maintenance professionals. And I think we can even bring in some specialists, similarly to how y'all saw me do this with the urban forestry, and really start to pick this apart and add some more depth and a lot more wisdom when it comes to take irrigation, for instance. I mean, I'm sure if we got an irrigation specialist up here, they could probably make 3 or 4 shows just on irrigation. So I think we've got a good roadmap that we're building here with the facilities maintenance show. A lot of great content we can make, and love to get these experts in all these different worlds when it comes to facilities maintenance project planning, software, trades, grant writing, equipment maintenance. The list goes on and on. Quite an extensive part of Parks and Recreation. So this is Craig LeBlanc with the Daily Parks and Rec Show Facilities Maintenance Edition, where we go into maintaining what it takes to maintain the facilities of Parks and Recreation. And we do this every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 10:30 a.m. So if this is something that you are a master in any part of this, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or X or any of the other platforms that you find us on. We'd love to get you up here to share your expertise and wisdom. If you're a superintendent, you've been doing this for a while, please share everything that you have with us, or come on the show, share what you've learned over the years, so that we can really give this to the in general Parks and Rec facilities maintenance community of America. All right, so we do have a show coming up. I'm pretty sure. Hold on. I'm pretty sure I do have a Nicholas Gonzalez is coming on the leadership series here in about an hour. Excuse me, about 36 minutes. So I'll see y'all shortly. Y'all have a great week Monday, and see y'all here in a bit. Bye.
Welcome to the Daily Parks and Rec Show, where we highlight the essential work that keeps our parks and facilities thriving. From local ball fields to multi-use athletic complexes, field maintenance ensures every space is safe, ready, and welcoming for play and community events. Facility maintenance is the backbone of operational excellence, ensuring that recreation centers, playgrounds, and shared spaces are functional, clean, and built to last. Behind the scenes, equipment maintenance keeps vital tools and machinery in peak condition. At the core of future-forward thinking is sustainability management, integrating green practices that reduce environmental impact and enhance long-term resource stewardship. Facilities maintenance is more than routine upkeep. It's strategic, essential, and foundational to building healthy and resilient communities. This is the Daily Parks and Rec Show, honoring the professionals who keep our spaces running and our communities strong.